Hello, everyone. Welcome to the return of Goofy Wrestling Bullshit. You know the rules around here. Sometimes wrestling is goofy, and sometimes it's bullshit. But if you ask the internet wrestling community, the WWE has been BSing for months now. Massive talent releases. And most recently, the release of 12 NXT superstars, including the likes of Bronson Reed, Bobby Fish, and Leon Ruff, among others. Mercedes Martinez, too. But what you're also hearing is about how NXT is dead. How, because of these releases, the way that we view NXT is over. Well, what if I told you that NXT has been dead since 2015, more or less 2016? When was the moment? Well, WWE is about to come up to that moment. More or less 3 years ago. SummerSlam. Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins. Two NXT superstars fighting for the then brand new Universal title. Nobody talked about the match. No, they were too focused on the title itself being a red repaint of the WWE Championships design. Yes, but it was two young NXT stars fighting for our love and attention. In the end, Finn Balor won, but not before separating his shoulder, leading to him being 6 months out, Kevin Owens becoming champion number 2, and history is history now. But it's that moment of Finn Balor separating his shoulder that killed NXT. But what if I told you the death of NXT was preordained due to actions not only that the company failed to oversee, but mostly because the fans rewarded the oversight? Now, let me first say this. From now on, when it comes to wrestling videos, if you have a comment down below to say, but you are going to put the onus on the company and the company alone, your comment will be deleted. I will not repeat myself. And I will be 100% true to that rule. Absolute. You will be deleted. Because it is time for the internet wrestling community as a whole. It is time for the wrestling community as a whole to start taking accountability for WWE's repeated failures. We love taking accountability when one of our franchises or one of our companies or one of our whatever succeeds. We love taking accountability when success is at the door in modern day internet, but we hate taking accountability when the fans fail the company as well and they end up doing something wrong. So, with that out of the way, let me explain how we got here. NXT in its current form started with the birth of the WWE Network in 2014. Now, keep in mind, NXT was the only original product that WWE produced outside of one show, a show called Breaking Ground. This is when we were introduced individually to Tyler Breeze and Baron Corbin, and Aaliyah, oddly enough, and Nia Jax near the end of it. This reality show, narrated by William Shatner, of all people, highlighted the ups and downs of NXT's developmental system and led ultimately to their Raw and SmackDown collapse and their NXT success. But what many people don't realize about the show is highlighted why the Performance Center, now the Capital Wrestling Center, has been a failure from moment one. And if this sounds like something I've said in a previous video, it has. Because on this channel, if there's one thing that I require of myself other than accountability, it is consistency. I have consistently said repeatedly that the Performance Center is the main problem of why the WWE continues to fail to build new stars and why NXT fails to deliver winners. How many winners have they wrought? 20. 11 women, 9 men. That's it. I don't count mid-card titles. I don't count tag team titles. But even if I did count tag team titles, the number would only be 28. Not a big improvement now, is it? If I add the mid-card titles, then it starts getting a little better and starts rounding out about 57 or so. But that's 57 out of 400 plus. Since the birth of NXT, there have been over 400 to 500 wrestlers that have appeared on television that have represented the Blue brand at one time or another. Out of those, only about 60 have succeeded. Out of those, 100 have been released in the past year. That is not entirely Vince McMahon's fault. Yes, it is their new president, Nick Khan, bringing his axe to work as he tries to refocus the company towards more of a media slash sports show, the company that once was. But that's the wrestling internet's number one excuse now as to why everything's failing. No, the failure started at the very beginning with the Performance Center itself. Why it was built, who was training there, what they're training. Because in that episode of Breaking Ground that I'm going to mention here, we see the struggles of a young female superstar known as Aaliyah. Superstar that has found her way onto the main roster finally recently. The episode struggles her trying to come up with a character that will appeal to get her on NXT TV finally in front of fans. As she's getting help from the trainers and a special promo school in which, thanks to a small audience of fellow trainees, while the trainers are watching, you are put on camera and asked to cut a promo in the character's form. You are even given a hypothetical mini stage for your character to practice the entrance that you are going to perform on television. Notice, everything is TV focused, camera focused. It's not focused on performance. It's not focused truly on it. And when I say performance, I don't mean wrestling skill. I mean performance, meaning character, getting into character, maximizing your character, talking in your character at the top of your voice. That thing. Like, for instance, right now, you're hearing me, Lionel Lily, the real me. But if I were to slip into some hypothetical Confucius-like sayings and put those goggles on that are behind me an instant, I would then become Nirvana Sparkle, my character reflecting not only in the look, but in the way my voice inflects and the choices that I make upon making that switch. A deeper, more wise man voice, using wise men's sayings, sounding like a big parent. That is character, and you can learn that. But the Performance Center doesn't teach that. The Performance Center, by their own admission, teaches the superstars to be camera ready. Camera ready and wrestler ready, character ready, are two completely different things. Through this episode, she fails to run into a gimmick until she has the idea of mimicking a genie character similar to Christina Aguilera's Genie in a Bottle. In fact, the song's name and the artist is even dropped directly, and thus gives birth to her Genie character, which, after a few days of bad attempts at a genie-like dance and some other failures, like her failure to inflect upon other things, the character finally succeeds in a passable form and makes her debut on NXT television, only to then, 3 months later, after the show, the character is eliminated and flames out, and she just became a generic bad guy, mostly known for palling around with Robert Stone, of all people. It is in that failure of that process, and it's happened over and over and over again. If you don't think Baron Corbin has a character now, he's never had a character. Once again, referring to Breaking Ground again, Baron Corbin's biggest struggle was not learning the in-ring sport. It wasn't learning how to move around in the ring or doing moves. His biggest problem, and even the trainers highlighted this, was getting the crowd involved, emotional inflection. In other words, Baron Corbin has always struggled, always, in getting the character to pop off screen enough where you care. This is a problem that was highlighted back in 2014. This is not a problem that is new. This is a problem that has been consistent. Now ask yourself, how many of the NXT flameouts that we have seen have had trouble, at least on the WWE stage, in making their character pop? Yes, you could say it's because the character fails to meet the WWE method. Well, yes, but what exactly is the WWE method? Does anybody know what exactly they're looking for? The method and what a passable character is? Even breaking ground and showing us the inside workings doesn't really give us all the answers to that question, just things that we can infer. But I mentioned fan accountability, and this is where the second step comes in. The second step comes in Full Sail University, the NXT universe. Using another hyperbole for you. Imagine if you're a touring musician. You've got a steady job at a certain club that you go to. Let's use one of my famous local musical hangouts here in the Colorado area, the Red Rocks. Let's say you got a constant job at the Red Rocks. You perform there every week. You're so good that you grow a following there. A regular group of fans show up every week at your performance live at 8 o'clock. They're always there. They know your songs by heart. Every time you want to experiment with a new song, they're right along with you. They can't wait just to hear you. And for years, that stage has become your home. You're a constant. People buy tickets to come and see you. The bar is hopping. But imagine one day that the big record exec finally sees you and you get the big record deal. All your fans are excited that the big record deal has finally come for you because you've earned it. But then you go out to your first stage on your first night on tour. Nobody knows your music. You haven't even released an album yet. Your hardcore fans are waiting for your LP because they know you're a star, but the rest of the world doesn't. And you have to do this every night. You have to seemingly reprove yourself, as it were. But you didn't get vocal coaching. You didn't have the support of a great sound mix in your pre-record. You're not used to performing at your best outside the studio. You weren't trained to handle stage fright or stage presence. You weren't given a glitzy performance with rockets and such. It's just you going out on stage with a guitar and asked to wing it. And you can't because you're still learning by doing. That repeated failure leads to the record company not being so sure. They end up releasing one or two albums. Your hardcore fans buy them, but nobody else does. The casual market doesn't care. Soon enough, after your contract is up, the record company doesn't resign you, or worse, they let you go early because they didn't get what they were promised. That's what happens a lot to NXT superstars, hypothetically. The failure begins at the bottom. It's because the process doesn't train these guys to be wrestlers. Hell, I'll even make another statement. They don't train these guys to be WWE superstars either. Because at least the WWE superstars I know had personality, had character. They were people that could pop. But why do they not learn? Because NXT has become nothing more than an indie wrestler safe space for indie wrestling fans to love their indie wrestlers. And they're given this safe space for years upon years upon years until they're finally released on national tour only to fail. And it happens again and again and again.
Come on. Yeah, come.
The failure is the process. The overprotection of the NXT brand, the overprotection of the NXT universe. Overprotection. It's like setting a fish into the wild ocean after years of being raised by humans. Some fish, because they are trained well, survive out in the wild, while others are left to sink or be eaten at the bottom of the ocean. But if they were trained well, if they were given the tools to be better overall stars, better characters, not wrestlers, if it was an actual performance center that taught well with great trainers and great teachers how to perform, maybe there wouldn't be so many performers, hundreds of performers that have failed. But again, we have to take some accountability. We play it too safe when they're down in NXT because in NXT, all that matters is your mat skill. All that matters is that you flip. All that matters is that you praise the crowd or pay attention to the chants that are given to the same crowd that you saw week in, week out, week after week, going to Full Sail University and being protected like a mother's nest. And it's happening all over again as NXT is still just only at the Capitol Wrestling Center, nestled under the protection of Mama and Papa Bird. But Mama and Papa Bird are idiots that can't teach well. Yes, NXT is being punished now because they failed to win at Wednesday nights. That is a fact. That is not emotional. That is straight fact. Nick Khan has been given the fine axe of death and is slicing and dicing NXT appropriately for its failure. And understand, do not blame NXT. Do not blame Vince McMahon. Do not blame Triple H for the failure of NXT now. No, 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 no. Do not blame them. That would be foolish. Blame yourselves. NXT was given all the cheat codes early. 2-week head start. Night that they are consistently on. USA, a cable channel that has been great to the WWE. 2 full hours, new presentation, new theme song, new set, great commentary team. They were given all the cheat codes, and yet they could not stop AEW from growing. They could not stop AEW's mission of success. They could not stop Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, and the Elite. They could not stop it, no matter how great the wrestling was. You want to know why? Because no matter how great the wrestling has always been in NXT, and that has been a constant, the characters, the stars have been 0%. Not exactly zero, more like 3%. Because that's how many succeed. Out of all the superstars that have come from the NXT system in its current form, only 3%, barely that, have become world champion mainstays on the main roster. Which means your developmental system from the ground up is failing at developing. And you want to know why it's failing at developing? Because it does not, and has not since 2014, developed any characters. And the characters that have succeeded at the NXT level to become world champions were probably already succeeding before they even got there. NXT has done nothing but make the superstars that go through its system worse. That is how Vince McMahon and Triple H have failed these people, by not hiring trainers that will train them to succeed. The failure does not come at the top when they come from the main roster. No, the failure comes twofold. It comes from coddling bad ideas, which we did, because if they weren't bad ideas, they would be succeeding on the main roster without any need for a tweak or a change, or even if they were tweaked and changed, the wrestlers themselves could get the new thing over. But they don't train adaptability. NXT has been dead. And it's not because of Vince McMahon or Nick Khan. It's because of the Performance Center itself, its process, or should I say, lack thereof, a true wrestling process. Because all it does is handicap wrestlers that can, and does not teach wrestlers who can't. To be an expert musician, you gotta not only know how to sing, you gotta know stage presence. You gotta feel the energy of the room. You got to become someone other than yourself. Those that do not learn how to adapt oneself to one's changing environment will be dead by that environment, because the predators do not care, because they have already adapted. It is the failure of adaptation that has led to this day. And that failure of adaptation started in 2014, when the Capitol Wrestling Center was even built and struck ground. It has been the biggest $250 million waste of time in the history of anything. In the history of any sport, it has been a giant waste of time, because even then, even before it began, the teachers there were incompetent. The cupboards were made bare, not because Vince McMahon wanted it to be bare, but because it always has been. Developmental, develop into what? Failure? Because that's how it was set up to be. And these cuts are only indicative of a bigger problem. It ain't money. It ain't selling the company. Well, it is selling the company, but not to you think. It's selling the company to Nick Khan. It's Nick Khan making a power play. It's Nick Khan and Bruce Pritchard making power plays. And Vince McMahon being so old, he can't see the insurrection that is happening before his eyes. the company is being taken from him. But NXT was always destined to fail because it did not create one superstar. The superstars made it themselves because they had to. They weren't given the tools to succeed. And we, the fans, failed to realize until it was far too late that they weren't given the tools. And now we want to sit and blame when we're part of the reason why they fail. Because we protected them way too early. We just thought face paint or a cool theme song or cool wrestling skill was enough. When all these guys would play a character, but were never taught the tools how to become one. And we are partially responsible. Tell me what you think about it. And sorry if the video ran a little long. Until next time, find peace in your own nirvana and stay goofy.